The first night the breathing started. I convinced myself it was the house settling, old beams shrinking against the cold, ancient nails sighing in their sockets, because that is what houses do when they grow older than the families inside them. But by the third night I understood that the sound had a rhythm too deliberate, too patient, to belong to wood and plaster. It came from the walls behind my bed, slow and damp, as if something enormous were asleep just inches from my skull, drawing in air through lungs that had not tasted the outside world in decades. I lay very still, counting the seconds between each inhale, telling myself that if I could predict it, I could control it, and if I could control it, I would not have to admit that it was real. During the day the house looked ordinary enough, dust floating in pale sunlight, floorboards creaking in friendly complaint, the faint smell of old varnish and something sour I could never quite locate. But at night the corners deepened into pits of shadow that seemed to swallow the light rather than merely hide from it. The breathing always began at 3:17 a.m., never earlier, never later, a wet rasp sliding through the walls. Follow for part 2 or watch the long form. Link in description. It was followed by a faint scratching like blunt fingernails testing the boundaries of a coffin. I tried sleeping in the living room, then the kitchen, then the hallway with every door open, but no matter where I lay, the sound rearranged itself to be just behind me, close enough that I could feel a subtle tremor in the plaster, as if the thing inside were pressing its weight forward, curious about the fragile barrier between us. On the fifth night I pressed my ear to the wall and held my breath to listen more carefully, and the breathing stopped immediately, replaced by a silence so complete it roared in my ears, and in that silence I felt something on the other side lean closer too, mirroring my posture, listening back. I jerked away and the breathing resumed, faster now, almost eager, and I realized with a creeping nausea that it had not been sleeping at all. It had been pretending. Follow for part 3 or watch the long form. Link in description. The next morning I searched the house from attic to basement, tapping walls, measuring dimensions, trying to reconcile the interior with the exterior, and that was when I noticed that the hallway was 3 feet shorter inside than it should have been based on the outside walls. A discrepancy I could not explain away with insulation or sloppy construction. I fetched a hammer and struck the drywall where the measurements suggested empty space, and the sound that came back was not the hollow thud of a cavity but a dull, resistant thump, like hitting packed earth. When I struck again, harder, a thin crack split the paint, and from that crack seeped a smell so foul and intimate that I gagged. A smell of damp soil and old meat and something metallic underneath, like blood left too long in a rusted pan. The breathing did not wait for night that day. It began as soon as the crack opened, a frantic wheezing that vibrated through the hammer into my hand, and the wall bulged outward ever so slightly, as if something inside had shifted its weight and was now bracing against the thin layer that separated us. I stumbled back and the bulge subsided, but the crack remained, a jagged grin in the plaster, and from within it I heard a whispering murmur that almost formed words, syllables slipping over each other like maggots writhing in a wound. That night, when the lights died again at 3:17 a.m., the wall finally opened wide enough to let something reach through.